Welcome to The Explicable. Today, we're unraveling the jaw-dropping story of Air Transat Flight 236. What began as a routine overnight flight across the Atlantic turned into one of the most remarkable survival stories in aviation history. In the early hours of August 24, 2001, the Airbus A330 developed a massive fuel leak deep over the Atlantic Ocean. Both engines eventually flamed out, leaving the plane completely without power, gliding silently through the dark sky. They successfully performed an emergency landing at Liges Air Base in the Azores, despite having no flaps or brakes. All 293 people on board survived. It remains the longest passenger aircraft glide in aviation history. Picture this. You're on a massive Airbus A330 weighing 200 tons. It's late at night, flying over the endless dark waters of the Atlantic. Inside the cabin, the soft amber glow of reading lights creates a sense of peace. Everything seems perfectly normal. The rhythmic hum of the twin engines is a comforting lullaby to the hundreds of souls on board. High above the clouds, the cockpit is a sanctuary of technology and steady navigation. But suddenly, a flicker. A slight shudder ripples through the floorboards. The lights dim for a fraction of a second. The vibration stops. The mechanical roar vanishes. Suddenly silence. No wind, no engines. Just the terrifying weight of 200 tons of metal suspended in the midnight air. The aircraft tips its nose downward, beginning a slow, ghostly glide into the pitch-black abyss below. Over the Atlantic, the silence is the loudest thing you'll ever hear. This marvel of engineering is reduced to a powerless 200-ton glider. Soaring over cold black water with no lights, no land, clear sky at 35,000 feet. A massive commercial airliner glides peacefully, but a silent crisis is about to unfold. Inside the cockpit, the pilots are met with a chilling sight. The fuel gauges are dropping at an impossible rate. And here's the kicker. Nothing like this had ever happened before. An airliner losing all its fuel mid-flight was unprecedented. On board were 306 people, 293 passengers, and 13 crew members, suddenly caught in a nightmare scenario. As the engines flame out, a heavy silence falls over the aircraft. The giant plane is now a high-altitude glider. Inside the cabin, the emergency lights flicker on. Anxiety spreads through the aisles as the reality of the situation sets in. Outside, the late afternoon sun casts a golden glow over the silent wings, masking the gravity of the emergency. The pilots must now make critical decisions with no power, relying on their training to save everyone on board. Every foot of altitude is precious as they search for any possible landing strip in the vast landscape below. This is a journey through fear and resilience, where every second dictates the fate of 306 souls. Every catastrophe begins with a single overlooked detail. Deep inside this hangar, a silent clock starts its countdown. Maintenance was supposed to be routine. 10 days out, the schedule was tight and the pressure was building. No one noticed the shadow of a flaw that would soon haunt the skies. It was just a bolt or a hairline fracture invisible to the naked eye, yet fatal. Thousands of blueprints, hundreds of logs, and yet the error remained hidden in plain sight. Flight 402 was ready to depart, unaware that its fate had already been sealed in the workshop. On a rain-slicked runway, the engines roared to life, masking the metallic scream of the failing part. High above the earth, the cockpit glowed with a warning that came far too late. Into the storm it flew, a tragedy waiting for its final, inevitable moment. A shadow on the ground, a heartbeat in the dark. The chain of events was now complete. Time ran out for the machine, but for the investigators, the search for the truth was just beginning. Somewhere in the wreckage, the secret waits to be found. So how did this happen? How could a modern, state-of-the-art jet just run out of fuel over the ocean on August 24, 2001? Let's rewind. Inside the cockpit, the instruments tell a terrifying story as the fuel gauges begin a rapid and unexplained descent toward zero. In the cabin, the atmosphere remains peaceful. Passengers rest in the dim light, completely unaware that their flight is becoming a race against time. Outside, there is only the vast, dark expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. Thousands of miles from the nearest runway, the isolation is absolute. August 24, 2001, a date etched into aviation history. What began as a routine flight from Toronto was about to face a mechanical catastrophe. The culprit was a hidden leak. A high-pressure fuel line had fractured, spraying precious kerosene into the wind and starving the massive engines. As the engines fell silent, the jet began the longest glide in history. Silent and powerless, It descended toward the horizon through the night air. In the cockpit, every second counted. This is the story of Air Transat 236, the Glide, a testament to pilot skill and survival. It started as a flicker, a minor glitch in a system designed for absolute perfection. But as the error codes bled red across the screens, it became clear. This was no routine anomaly. The backbone of the facility was collapsing. The supervisor watched in disbelief as the infrastructure failed in real time. Every cable and connection was scrutinized. Somewhere in this labyrinth of silicon and light lay the answer. But the hardware looked intact. The diagnostics were inconclusive, leaving the team desperate for a breakthrough. To find the truth, we must look back. 9 days ago, a routine maintenance check seemed successful. A single screw left just a fraction of a millimeter loose. A moment of fatigue, a second of oversight. In engineering, there is no such thing as close enough. That microscopic gap triggered a catastrophic chain reaction. The system is back online now, but the lesson remains. In a world of precision, the smallest detail is critical. Because when the stakes are this high, everything counts. Even the things we think don't matter. On August 17th, metal chips were found in the right engine's oil system, a clear sign it needed immediate replacement. To keep the schedule on track, a loaner engine arrived from Rolls-Royce, appearing ready for installation. But beneath the surface, its fuel and hydraulic fittings were slightly different, just a few millimeters off from the original specs. In aviation, these tiny differences become critical. Even a minor mismatch can lead to catastrophic failure under flight conditions. The maintenance crew was pressured by time, with the aircraft scheduled for departure the very next morning. Lacking access to the proper technical manual for this specific engine variant, the engineers faced an impossible dilemma. This is a stark reminder of how tiny physical discrepancies and operational pressure can converge into critical engineering risks. Inside the quiet shadows of a hangar, a massive jet engine waits. It is a masterpiece of engineering where every single millimeter counts, but time is short. The lead mechanic glances at the manual, then at a custom shim. He decides his experience outweighs the strict protocol. He forces the non-standard part into the housing. Metal grinds against metal. A diagnostic tool flashes a warning, but he ignores the red light. It looks sturdy enough, a quick fix to meet a deadline. He wipes his brow and walks away, leaving the engine to its fate. Hours later, the aircraft thunders down the runway. Thousands of pounds of thrust put immense pressure on every single internal component. Deep inside the furnace of the engine, the improvised part begins to fail. Heat and centrifugal force are unforgiving. The shearing begins. At 30,000 feet, the silence is shattered. The engine casing erupts in a violent burst of orange flame and thick black smoke. Chaos erupts in the cabin. Passengers grip their seats as the aircraft jolts violently against the thin, freezing mountain air. In the cockpit, the dashboard is a sea of red warnings. Engine failure. Structural integrity compromised. The pilots fight for their lives. Against a darkening sky, the giant struggles to stay aloft. A battle against physics, caused by a single shortcut taken on the ground. A small, broken piece of metal falls toward the earth. A grim reminder. In aviation, there's no such thing as a small mistake. Over 9 flights, the mismatched tubes vibrated and rubbed, and eventually cracked, causing a fuel leak of 13 metric tons per hour. Worse, the plane had no dedicated warning for this scenario. When the fuel imbalance alarm went off, the crew acted from memory, following standard procedures, but accidentally fed the remaining fuel straight into the leaking engine.
Six
6:13 a.m., high above the Atlantic, 200 tons of steel and 300 souls were cruising through the dawn. Then the nightmare began. A violent explosion rocked the airframe. The right engine erupted in a terrifying plume of fire against the early morning sky. Inside the cabin, panic set in. The orange glow of the engine fire reflected off the terrified faces of passengers staring into the abyss. 6:26 a.m., the unthinkable happened. The left engine sputtered and died. The roar of the jet was replaced by an eerie, whistling silence. They were now a glider. 200 tons of machinery suspended over the coldest, loneliest stretch of the Atlantic Ocean. The navigation screen showed Lige's Air Base in the Azores, 144 kilometers away. A tiny speck of hope in a desperate descent. Every second, they lost altitude. 30,000 feet. 20,000. The ocean was rising to meet them as the power began to fail. The cabin lights flickered out. In the dim glow of emergency floor strips, passengers gripped their armrests, braced for the inevitable. As the freezing dark blue water rushed toward them, everyone held their breath. They were out of altitude and out of time. The miracle was just beginning. On August 24, 2001, Air Transat Flight 236 was cruising at 39,000 feet over the Atlantic when the unthinkable happened. A massive fuel leak caused both engines to fail, leaving the giant aircraft completely powerless in the dark. At the controls was Captain Robert Peach. He faced a terrifying 19-minute powerless glide through the wind. Without engine power, the aircraft became a 200-ton glider, guided only by Peach's skill and nerves of steel. With 306 souls on board, he steered the plane across 75 miles of open ocean toward a small landing strip in the Azores. Inside the cabin, the oxygen masks dropped. Passengers gripped their seats in a silence broken only by hushed prayers. Peach focused on a single point of light on the horizon, the runway. He had only one chance. The aircraft approached the tarmac at a dangerous speed. Peach braced for impact. Tires exploded and sparks lit up the tarmac as the plane screeched across the ground, fighting to stop. Against all odds, the plane came to a halt. The emergency slides deployed into the morning air. 306 lives saved. A masterpiece of aviation skill. Robert Peach had achieved the impossible. While the world celebrated the landing, investigators began digging deeper into the events leading up to that fateful night over the Atlantic. However, the story became complicated. The media revealed Robert Peach's past jail time for drug smuggling, a secret hidden for decades. The revelation shocked the public, and soon after, the airline faced Canada's largest aviation fine for critical maintenance oversights. In hindsight, it wasn't a single mistake, it was a chain of failures that began long before the engines ever went silent. Experts call it the Swiss cheese model, a safety concept where layers of defense are represented as slices of cheese. Each slice has holes, individual weaknesses. Normally, these holes are offset, and the system remains safe from any catastrophic failure. But on this occasion, the holes in safety procedures aligned perfectly, creating a direct path for the disaster to occur. By understanding this alignment, we can learn how to build more resilient systems and prevent such failures from ever happening again. High above the dark Atlantic, Air Transat Flight 236 glided into the history books through a sequence of silent failures. What began as a routine flight soon became a desperate race against time as fuel vanished into the night air. Flight 236 is a story of survival and heroism, yes, but also a chilling reminder of our technological vulnerability. It forces us to look beneath the surface of the complex machines we rely on for our very lives. Small human errors, minor technical flaws, and overlooked procedures can combine into life-threatening situations in the blink of an eye. The miracle in the Azores proved that human skill can prevail, but it also exposed the fragility of the systems we build. Every modern system is a web of complexity, where a single broken thread can unravel the entire structure without warning. It leaves us questioning how many of these invisible errors exist in the systems we trust every day. As we move into an increasingly automated future, the silence of Flight 236 remains a warning we cannot ignore.